I'm Catherine Garnier, and I'm interviewing Karen Anderson, who works at Balnarring Preschool. Balnarring Preschool has won a raft of awards for their incorporation of Indigenous perspectives, but also they won the Victorian Early Years Awards in 2019 for creating collaborative community partnerships. And so I'm really delighted to have you here today, Karen, to talk about this. Um, can you tell us a little bit about your setting and its diversity?
Sure. So Balnarring Preschool is on the Mornington Peninsula. It's run by it's a community preschool, so it's run by a committee of management. We have two 4-year-old groups with 27 children in each group attending 15 hours a week, and two 3-year-old groups with 20 children in each group attending for 2.5 hours a week. And we have a very rustic, I'd probably say, outdoor space that reflects the living and learning with nature philosophy that we've embedded into the program. And so that outdoor space has been really important this year through the pandemic, of course, because we've mostly done all our learning outside. It has large rocks, fire pit, lots of natural elements, great big sand area, a mud pit, chooks, vegetable garden, lots of trees and bushes. So it's a really special space and it's quite big. And we also run a program at the beach in the bush once a week for 4 to 5 hours. That also obviously reflects that philosophy. And part of that philosophy is honouring and celebrating First Peoples cultures.
Wonderful. And so when you are honoring and celebrating First Peoples cultures, how has that worked with building community in your setting in particular? And have you had any challenges or constraints? And especially with coronavirus, you mentioned that you were outside a lot, but has that added any additional challenges? How are the ways that you focus on building community in your setting?
Okay, so relationships are extremely important with our preschool, and never so much as this year through the pandemic is it been important for us to maintain those relationships. We have a really strong ethos of welcoming families into our program at whatever capacity they have to do that. And we involve them in all aspects. So whether it's on the committee of management, whether it's coming in each day and helping the team, maybe people have got skills that they want to share with us. So we're really welcoming all the time of everybody. Obviously that was much harder this year. Many of my relationships this year were developed through car windows, so quite different to normal. And I think we're really open with our families and community, and we invite their opinions and contributions to everything that we do. And as far as our like with the nature program, we involve them down at the beach and the bush so that they can experience that for themselves. And also the children take home their learning. So the parents are quite fascinated by what their children are learning, and then they'll come and ask us for a little bit more. So it's just a really welcoming environment from the first day they start. I think they'd all agree with me. And it's something that we nurture, that relationship we nurture really well. This year we've done lots of visits to homes. You know, I've been singing songs on people's front lawns and different things like that, just to try to keep that connection to the preschool for the families and build those relationships. It's just something that we pride ourselves in and we work on hard all the time.
Yeah, and that sort of constant contact has engaged the families and they're coming back and
Yes.
being alive in the center and in the
Yes.
preschool.
Yes. Yeah.
And I
And
noticed,
I
go
think
ahead.
also the teaching team are quite passionate about what they're doing. So our enthusiasm and our strive to keep on learning more inspires the community to learn what we're doing and be involved in that.
And I noticed on your website, each of your groups has an Indigenous moniker or name. Can
Mm-hmm.
you talk a little bit about how you're incorporating language or Indigenous language into your teaching and learning, and how the families have accepted that?
Mm-hmm. So originally we worked with Priscilla Reed-Loynes, who is a Indigenous consultant that worked with us to build the team's understandings, knowledges, confidence, I guess. And she worked with the children and the families as well for a few years. And then we connected with the local elder of Balnarring Country, Nawi Carolyn Briggs. We've spent many, many hours with her, listening to her and being guided by her. With the naming of the groups, we asked her if we could have some names for those groups, and we actually had chosen names, and then we spent about 3 hours with her and we changed what we were going to call them after listening to her and her stories behind some of those words. So we've just slowly built up the vocabulary, I think, of what we can use within the service with respect and permission from Nawi Carolyn Briggs and also Bunurong Elder Faye Stewart Muir. Just as things come up, we ring them or contact them and just say, you know, is there a word for this or that? And they give us permission to use that. A lot of the language is connected with our nature programs. So when the children are out learning on the land, they're able to name a lot of the animals that they see in the Bunurong names. And we also have made up quite a few songs that includes some of the language. So we've only got, I don't know, we may have, I don't know really, 30 or 40 words that we have access to, but the children would hear at least one of those words every day, and they will use that language in their like storytelling. Whenever they see a black raven, they would never use that word anymore. It's always wah. So they've come to know those birds through I guess a different lens than what we would have when we were growing up. And then they take that language home to their families. And it's really beautiful. I actually heard one child having quite a strong argument almost with his grandmother one year about an emu, and she was saying this is an emu and he was saying no, it's a barramal, and she's going no, it's an emu, and they're having this back and forth because she didn't know what he was talking about. So I guess the language has been really embraced by the children and they use it all the time, probably in place of the English words now.
That's fantastic. That's incredible. And the families have just adopted this and are continuing the practice.
They think it's amazing. Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes. And because they sing the songs like all the time, so they become quite a part of our program. And I think the children almost like, oh, they're just proud to know that they're saying words from a really ancient culture that's still with us today, but it's, you know, some of the oldest words in the world. So they almost understand the significance of being able to speak those words.
That's fantastic. I think that's wonderful that you're giving them another sort of perspective and tying that language, you know, to their learning. So you've mentioned that you were working in cooperation with some local elders. Have you worked with any other partner organizations around sort of the incorporation of Indigenous language or in your teaching or your outdoor school and working with families?
We have a local gathering place near us called Willam Moraine. We visit them, and they are certainly part of a festival that we run each year to celebrate and honour First Peoples cultures. I'd say the partnership is growing there, but the elders that we work with they're our experts, and they're the people that we go to. Especially Carolyn Briggs, our relationship with her is really strong, and it's quite a reciprocal relationship in that she's given us some of her stories and asked the children to illustrate them. So we've published 2 books now of her stories, and we're currently doing the 3rd one. So I think for us that's the relationship that we've worked on the most. Yeah, and it's not always easy to be able to access First Peoples. They're super busy and they're pulled in many directions. So we're really respectful of that. And yeah, I think I've answered that question.
So you are really creating your own resources, aren't you?
Yes.
With the stories and with the songs that you're creating as well.
Correct.
In partnership, which is fantastic.
Yes.
So if you could share any sort of wisdom or insight into your practices with other educators, what would you like to share to anyone who came to your practice, or if you had anything to say about your practice?
Okay. I would say, especially if you're talking about embedding First Peoples perspectives, is that what you're thinking? The first step would be for you personally to develop some knowledge about the history of the First Peoples, and then for your team to do the same. And then from there, once your knowledge grows and your understanding of what's happened historically, then you can start to think, well, then what role have I got in presenting to young children the truth and building a society that respects those first custodians of the land, and then walking together to create practice that celebrates them. And the children are so excited to be learning about First Peoples, not just Balnarring, but from all across Australia. And that's what I would encourage all educators and teachers to do, is to bring that into your program so that it becomes a daily practice. It's not an add-on. It's not just during, Reconciliation Week or NAIDOC Week. It's just something that happens every day, just as if art and music and literacy would happen. It would be just everywhere. And also by doing that, it's creating culturally safe environments for the families of those First Peoples to come in and be part of your service and contribute to further knowledge of that culture.
So apart from the books and songs that you guys have created, if someone was interested in incorporating a more Indigenous practice, what are the steps that they should take?
Exploring where you can get that knowledge from. So whether it's through books, conversations, working with First Peoples, but that will come with a cost. So that's to be included in our budget. We have a budget that covers the cost of working with all different First Peoples. I think like immersing yourself personally. So it's almost like a personal commitment first that you're going to do this. So then you seek out where can I go to learn more? So I want to hear stories from all different people across Australia, through music, through art, through theatre, through books, through interviews. There's like so much available now through many, many different organisations. I think just immersing myself personally is what's helped to build my confidence and my commitment to continue this and grow in my service with the team that I work with, and then beyond if I can, like I am today. So it takes a long time. It's not something that just happens. It's, it's been 8, 9, 10, maybe longer years that I've been interested in this. And I'm still learning every day. I learn something, whether it's big or small, that will impact on what I deliver to the children and the families.
This leads beautifully into my next question. Is you talked about the past a bit and what you want to do for the future, but where do you see the program going? Where do you see your development going, or the development of your team and the families and communities?
Good question. So for me personally, I'm now part of the World Forum Education and Care Foundation, and I'm global leader this year and as part of my global leader role, I had to develop an advocacy project, and I recognise that lots of teachers were looking for guidance from me of how did I begin this type of practice and how could I support them. So I created a project that we've been working on all year, and we meet once a month, and I've just been inviting First Peoples into this space to share with the participants their stories. And there's been stories about intergenerational trauma. There's been stories from Torres Strait Island. There's been stories about cultural awareness. So that's my goal, I guess, is to support and help other teachers right across the education spectrum. So from family daycare to secondary school, help build their confidence so that they can bring it into their service, and so that they can see that it's not just Indigenous studies, but it's actually woven through everything that you do in a day. So that project's been really successful and will continue next year now, I think. And I'm also part of the World Forum Foundation Indigenous Peoples Action Group. So I'm meeting with Indigenous peoples from across the world, even though I'm not Indigenous. So that's a bit of an honour that I can be part of that and hear those stories from across the world, and also strengthens my commitment that a lot of wrongdoing has happened in the world, and you know, it's our role now to teach our children to change that and make it a better place for everybody. Within our service, we just have a commitment that we will just keep growing. So we've just done our reconciliation action plan, added more actions to that. So thinking a bit more broadly than we maybe would have before. So as your knowledge deepens, your thoughts around what the practice looks like expands and deepens as well. So we all have a commitment personally and professionally to continue our learning and never think that we've done enough. One teacher is doing her PhD around, I can't remember the topic, but it's about First Peoples. And even the educators also have all got little commitments about, they just want to learn more about whether it's storytelling, whether it's about truth telling, whether it's about being involved in practices such as like mindfulness or wellness practices that come from First Peoples. We just constantly are doing that. And I think because we're working with Nawi so closely and we've got more books to write, well, not write, sorry, illustrate, that just keeps us in those conversations all the time and learning all the time. So we just have a commitment that our learning will keep going.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. That's pretty much everything. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I was just thinking I should show you the books.
Yes, please. That would be delightful.
This is Barramal, which is about the emu. So inside, like all the children that have been involved in the illustrating, all their names are in there, and then their journey is through the pictures, and that relates to the story. And then in the Bunjil one, the children have actually created the images in response to the text. So we're really excited about that. And also the Barramal one, because you were talking about language before, it also has a page on it, which is the Bunurong words, and then the children have illustrated them. So then this is now a resource for people to use in their schools or kindergartens.
And these are available through your website?
They're available through the kindergarten, so they could contact us through our email, or they're also in several bookshops. They're at the Koori Heritage Trust and Yarnstrong Sister and Melbourne Museum and Botanical Gardens